Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And I am Lou. I'm an astrologer and writer.
And I'm Jen. I'm an Akashic healer and creator of the Illuminating Journey cards,
which are magical. And this edition of the Weirdly Magical podcast, we're recording really early because Jen and I have major travel schedules going on at the moment and major shifts going on in our own lives. So we're having to meet as and where we can. So you're getting this episode well ahead of time for the new moon in Scorpio that takes place on November the 7th at 9:02 a.m. Mountain time. So 8:02 a.m. Pacific, 11:02 a.m. Eastern, and so that would be, I can't remember the time. You guys will have to work out times yourself. Time and date. I'm an astrologer, not
not a clock.
Exactly. So the new moon in Scorpio will take place at 15 degrees and 11 minutes of Scorpio, and it's a new moon, so that means the sun and moon are conjunct at that point of Scorpio. Other things, there's a lot going on in this new moon chart again. The day before the new moon, on November the 7th, the moon's nodes shift back into Cancer Capricorn after an extended stay in Leo Aquarius, and this will kick off a period of eclipses in Cancer Capricorn. So all the next eclipses for about the next year and a half will be in Cancer and Capricorn, and it's going to be a whole shift of emphasis for our collective karmic potential and future and what we're releasing. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. On the new moon as well, the nodes are squaring Uranus in Aries, who also slips back into Aries the day before on November the 6th. And all this happens to, of course, be the midterm elections in the USA. So that's really interesting. And Uranus is conjunct Eris, the goddess of discord or the revealer of artifice. So we've got two very kind of disruptive energies there at the end of Aries. And then also the nodes are squaring Venus and Ceres in Libra. And all this is making a grand cross or grand square, a cardinal grand cross or grand square, which is a very tense but very active configuration. So we'll look at that. We also have Jupiter at the very last degree of Scorpio on the new moon, just before he moves into Sagittarius. We have Pluto and Vesta exactly together at 19 degrees of Capricorn. And we have Mars and Lilith exactly together at 25 degrees of Aquarius. So there's a lot of pairings in this chart that we'll be looking at. So I don't know, Jen, if you want to give your initial impressions, or would you like to share your card first?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll share my card first. And so I picked a card from my deck about this moon and got this card. So it's the 15, the Soul Portal 15. And for those of you who can't see the screen who are listening, this card is in a deep underwater cave, well below the surface, with this beautiful emerald lake and emeralds in front. And there are these bubbles rising. And in the distance, there's kind of a doorway. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a doorway. So it's a very magical kind of card, caves with cave paintings. I see this as it's kind of like the place we go to, the depth we go to. In the center, there's a plate, like a giant plate that has many bubbles. on it, or ideas forming. So it's a place to go to, the way I read it, is a place we go to reconnect with a part of ourselves, with our dreams, with what is true for us, so we can begin to see our dreams, or the things we truly desire, the things we value or want to bring into reality, rising, these beautiful balls kind of floating in the air.
And I want to mention that Scorpio does represent caves. It's one of Scorpio's, and we have this new moon in Scorpio, and this whole time is happening during Venus retrograde in Scorpio and Libra. So that would indicate going deep within as well, because she's in her underworld journey. So it's, I always love how cards always match what's happening in the astrology.
Yes, it's quite extraordinary. I think this whole idea of being in the depths of who we are, and really coming to terms with that, is a key element of this new moon to me. When I look at the numbers and the energy that I feel, that comes through the records.
And of course, the card is 15 card, and
yes,
the moon is at 15 degrees. So.
I know, it's pretty extraordinary. It's actually at 15:11, so that's even more interesting, because we're, of course, in an 11 year, 2 + 1 + 8, and we're in an 11 month. November is always an 11, so we have a lot of 11 happening in this chart and in this month. And with the master number, 2 master numbers, I add them together on the numerology that I do, and it's 22. So we actually have 3 master numbers this month. So it's a very intense, portentous awakening.
So what does the number 15?
The number is, the ancients called this number of spiritual alchemy. So it's a very beautiful number, because it's like a blessing, right? I feel like this, when the numbers show up and the planets and all of that, they're really giving us a blessing or an opportunity, because every number has an opportunity or message. We can choose to move with it and embrace that greater message, or we can choose to disregard it and stay stuck. So the 15 is, with that 1 + 5, which makes a 6, the spiritual alchemy of this number gives us the ability to truly be of service. Because I actually wrote down a quote, which I think is a pretty cool quote, and it says, "The vocation of every man and woman is to serve other people." And that's by Tolstoy. I don't know how to say his name.
Tolstoy?
Yes.
Tolstoy.
Tolstoy. Yes, I don't know. Oh, that's hard to say. Anyway, for some reason, Tolstoy. So this is part of it, because the 15 is a number of service. But when we say service, it's not being a servant in the sense of somebody else owns us, but in the sense of doing the things we love. When we do the things we love, and only what we love, then we're not resentful. We take care of ourselves. We say no when we feel like I've had enough. I need to go take care of myself. That self-care stops us from becoming martyrs. So it's a very important aspect of this. And it aligns us to the spirit of life, or freedom, which allows us to be focused on what we're doing and focused on moving forward in that way, so we can alchemize what we love and, of course, be successful, make money, create abundance, connect with love. So it's a very loving number, as well as having this highly magnetic energy of philosophical and perseverance. It's a very joyous number too. There's a lot of joy in it, because it opens up our heart to what is possible when we really do things from love, when we live from love. What can we create?
Well, the quote, along with what you're saying, really reminds me of the thing about filling your own cup first. And it's the cups in the tarot, and they're really very joyful, loving cards also generally, you know. And if you can't help somebody, it's also like putting, you know, the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on anybody else. You can only serve others from a full cup. So, and that's what you said, doing that stuff that fills you up, brings you joy, and then it ripples out.
Yes, and I think the key thing here is when we remember that we have permission, or we're being given the blessing to do what we love. Because so much of how our society has worked has been about doing things out of obligation. Oh, I must do this. I'm supposed to do this.
And that doesn't fill your cup.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't replenish you. It doesn't nurture you. And there's this aspect of generosity or giving or gratitude that's all part of the the spiritual laws. That when we give from that full cup, when we give because we know we have plenty, right? That generosity, it blesses the things we give. And if we're being like, I don't want to give that because that's mine, or there's not enough, then everything is tainted, and it creates that taint. I'm only giving it to you because I have to. I'm only doing this because I have to. It's like we say, when you cook food with love, right? It adds the energy, and when you put bad thoughts into it, it trickles out. So we can actually feel energetically when somebody, even though we don't know it, our bodies and our energies change by the attitude of the people that are giving us things, right? And this is about learning to receive. So when we know we're fully loved, then we don't have to be mean or nasty or grab something from someone else.
Exactly. So to go back to the number from an astrological perspective, the 15 degrees Scorpio, it's also the middle number of the degrees. The degrees start at 0 and go up to 29. 15 is the pivot point, that fulcrum. And here we are as well with a grand cross on the moon's nodes that have also just shifted signs, and that's another fulcrum point. The nodes are always a pivot point. We just last week recorded the podcast for the Taurus full moon, and that we described that as going to be a big jolt. Well, this has all the energy of more big jolt in the system. I think we're going to have some major surprises come on the election, to be honest. Who knows which way, though, because Uranus is totally unpredictable. Any astrologer that says they can predict which way Uranus is going to go, I think is I think is kind of just putting their bias on it, because expect the unexpected is the term to use for Uranus. And people go, oh, at that point, because people don't like change, but Uranus is overall a benevolent kind of rebel energy. He brings awakenings, he brings amazing downloads and pleasant surprises, as well as sometimes unpleasant surprises. But even the even the unpleasant surprises often turn out for the best with Uranus, I find. The shifts that he brings are radical and revolutionary, but kind of necessary for our growth and evolution. That's how I feel about Uranus. And of course, he's in this grand cross, and there's Eris as well right next to him. And I call her the revealer of artifice. And, all this is squaring the south node, which is the releasing node, the past. It's what we need to let go of, and what we need to release its grip on. And Capricorn is really the patriarchy, the rules we live by. It's kind of this rigid kind of energy of like, you should do it this way. It's the father figure. So how appropriate that all this is kind of disrupting that status quo over there in Capricorn. That's one side of it. Then we also have Venus on the opposite side. Venus at 26 degrees of Libra. She's about to end her retrograde on November the 16th, so just 9 days after this new moon. And her station direct is at 25 degrees, so she's almost at the point she's going to turn direct. Yet another changing point. And she's conjunct Ceres, who's the great mother. So we've got two wonderful goddess energies over there in Libra. We've got Eris, the disruptive goddess, over there next to Uranus. And then we've also got Vesta conjunct Pluto, almost exactly. And Vesta is focus and commitment. So there's an element to my mind of this about focusing on what we need to stop doing, what we need to move away from. Okay. But it gives me a lot of hope, especially because we also have Mars and Lilith together again there in Aquarius at 25 degrees. And Aquarius is Uranus ruled. So those two are very disruptive energies as well. Mars cuts to the heart of things. He's our drive, he's our will, he's action. He's also kind of the young masculine principle. And there's Lilith, who's the original woman. She was the before Eve. And she's kind of wild, unapologetic, Kundalini kind of yin energy. So all these pairings, I just feels like a real shake-up and rebalancing to me. It's starting now as we record on the 17th of October, I think we are. But so we've got this whole period. So really, Jen and I are giving you this opportunity to be kind of prepared for this time where you're going to really have to hang on to your hats, I think.
Well, yes, absolutely. And I think what's interesting, Uranus, this idea of Uranus and all of this, when I look at all the structure of the numbers and the planets and all what's happening, is what we're being given, because we have all these 11s, the 11s of the month that we talked about, the 29 degrees of some of these planets, the nodes and Uranus. Those add
there's a lot of ones as well, isn't there? So yeah,
29, which adds up to 11. The thing is, this is about choice. We're being given, like all of this, since we have free will, the universe gives us opportunities. This is an opening. This is the gateway. 11 is a gateway. It's this idea of mastering balance, mastering harmony, and pairing. The idea that we have these pairs is a reminder that we work together to make change. Like, yes, rebellion is part of it. We do need to break up old structures. However, we also have to decide where we fall. 11 is this number of light coming in, the psychic channel. For me, I see this time as a time where we're expanding our physical bodies to receive the sense of our divine essence. So how willing are we to expand and go, I don't know what's coming, but I'm allowing the light in, as opposed to, I don't know what's coming, so I'm going to force things to stay the way they are. So we have the patriarchy. We have these people that are going, we're going to push you back in the box. And this idea of change, or the opportunity, because all of this is about change. Life itself is about change. So with the 11 or the 29, that pushing us to kind of expose ourselves, expose our dreams, be willing to be to connect to others, but also to, I don't want to say the word compromise, because it's not true that we're going to give up what we desire. But what it is we need to collaborate, right? We have to decide, we have to choose. That's the thing about the two. I know we talked about it last time, the idea of the scale or the teeter-totter, where you're going from, there are two polarities, which is what this is about. Our lives have been about polarities, and bringing them together, or finding the balance. Like, this is what this is about, letting go of that need to control. I must know what's happening.
That's so funny. I was just about to say, oh, we've got the polarities and they're coming together. And you just
That's right.
and,
Yes.
and that North Node that has just moved into Cancer on just the day before this, is in the sign of the family.
Yes.
And, I think people look at Cancer as, oh, it's the home and, the mother, because it's ruled by the moon. But it's the family too. And I think because it's the North Node, it's what we're being pulled towards. To my mind, we're being reminded or given the opportunity to remember, because there's a lot of ancestral remembrance stuff involved in Cancer as well, that we are a big family. Even those on the seemingly opposite divide to you, we are a family. And that does involve kind of not compromise, as you said, but balancing and bringing to center, and allowing people their own truth, but also living for the good of everybody. It's and supporting everybody. Whereas Capricorn, and I don't want to be down on Capricorn because it has great qualities too, but as a South Node thing, it's part of it kind of activates more the cold side of Capricorn, the separation, the power over each other, the I'm the boss kind of thing over each other. Whereas Cancer's more about the nurturing, the allowing, and thinking of others, but not necessarily without filling your own cup, to go back to that, but just remembering that we are a big family. So that's a big element of this shift, I think, too.
Yes, and I think also the other aspect of Cancer, which is interesting, is it's giving us the opportunity, especially with this relationship with the South Node, and Uranus, is to let go of old beliefs and old behaviors that we have, genetically and ancestrally, and even in this lifetime, we've adapted to and said, oh, this is mine. And this is about this breaking away of an old way, because the Capricorn side, the institutional side, right, the side of government or governance, we do need institution and we do need governance, but we have to break the old. Like, this is really what this is happening, is we're coming back to the self and re-looking at everything, at the landscape, and going, all the stuff that we built based on old rules, or the old idea of
the separation of everything.
Yes, exactly. Separation, even of, that's what I was actually going to say. So you must be in my mind. The separation of, we have had this idea of spiritual practice, that we've had somebody who is who stands in for God and gives us the messages. And now we're moving into, that idea of, oh, God or source, whatever, is connected to me. I need to listen to what I'm getting so I can be sure about who I am, so I can get involved, create community, and also we can build institution and rules, governance around community and things that suit us, instead of being controlled by a few people who've decided, oh, we know what's good for you. It's like we're breaking away from the child, from being the children with the strict parents saying, you will do what I tell you, and you'll behave, and you'll suffer, and I'll give you a crumb. And going, no, right? No, I don't want that anymore. I want, I'm going to go get together with people. We're going to grow our own vegetables. We're going to cook good food.
And there's the polarities of the male-female too. We've lived in this where, men are over here and they behave this way, and women are over here and they behave that way. And, it's been going on for quite a few years, this rebalancing, and sometimes it's gone too far the other way with women kind of like, being against men. But we have to remember we have the masculine and feminine within us. So in a way, none of it's about men and women, none of it. It's about rebalancing those energies within all of us and realizing, that the beings in male bodies have that soft female yin side as well. And the beings in female bodies have that, male drive and energy or young energy as well. It's coming to realize that we're more alike than we are separate and different. and we need to realize and come together instead of feeling threatened by all this shift and change.
Well, yes. And so this is the power that when we know our power source, which Uranus is in a sense, and really links us to our power source, right? Because Uranus is the higher energy of power. We recognizing that we are we don't have to fight to be seen. Like a lot of this energy has been the struggle to be heard and seen, because we're looking at people that are never going to see us, or not the way they are, right? They can't see us anyway. So we have to just let go of that and go, well, they're on their own journey. They're experiencing what they're experiencing. Doesn't mean we give in to them. We just let go of the need to control them, right? Or control how they see us, and go, I'm just going to be who I am. So there's a lot of freedom, right? Which is, you know, that freedom to just release any of that need to look a certain way, which is all of that Cancer, Capricorn, right? We have looked a certain way so we can be approved of, you know, so our standing in the world would be, you know, the right one.
Yes.
And now, I think the other aspect of the Cancer thing about the home is interesting, because we're changing the way we live on our home, the earth, as well as our personal homes. You know, we don't need all the stuff we've collected to make ourselves look important.
And more people are realizing that, you know, all the time. You've seen like the tiny home movement and things. Again, that's perhaps going the polarity again, you know, it's like, because kind of ironically, a lot of the tiny home movement, they're buying big kick-ass trucks to pump out gas to pull their home around. But it's just showing people are becoming aware of different ways and things like that. I'm not saying any one way is right or any way.
That's right. It's choices. Remembering that we all have choices, and it's okay for people. I think the biggest thing here is remembering that it's okay for people to make choices, remembering that no matter what choices we make, there are always consequences, right?
Exactly.
So we do need rules and you know, a kind of an agreement about, we have only, well, I don't know what to say only, we have resources, but we have to be able to use the resources in a way that everyone and everything benefits. It's not just humans, it's animals and the actual physical earth that has to be taken into. That's also part of the home. The energy is recognizing things that are not human have energy and have a voice too.
I will say as well, just to kind of switch a little bit, because I'm speaking as it comes to mind, with Jupiter at the very last degree of Scorpio, when Jupiter went into Scorpio last October, that's when the Weinstein Me Too resurgence happened, because of course the Me Too movement did not start last October, but it resurged, let's say. And I think with Jupiter at the very last degree of Scorpio and Venus about to turn direct and go back into Scorpio, and this new moon in Scorpio, I think we're kind of going to get a last, not final, but a last blast for now of this kind of uncovering and purging kind of energy before we can move back into that more balanced energy. And I think that's the pivot point thing again as well, bringing it into this rebalancing. You know, it was necessary for all these allegations to come out, so everything can be looked at, and then we can look at how we relate to each other. And it's not just men and women again, because men have been abused and by other men, and women have abused, and you know, so I have to acknowledge that it's just a general kind of hidden abuse that's been happening for many years. I really think we're kind of going to hear a lot about it though in the next few weeks, until really the end of the year, while all this Scorpio energy ends up and Jupiter moves out of Scorpio, not to return for another 12 years. So just be aware that all that's going to be coming up as well, which also for a lot of people will mean a lot of repressed memories. But know that they're coming up to be healed. It's another opportunity to be looked at and healed about how we relate to each other, how we come together as that global family in the Cancer North Node and treat each other with love and respect, really. That's what the Cancer North Node is also asking. You know, it's unconditional love, really, because it's a water motherly sign. It's just saying, just love one another. So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the other part of the this whole movement and this purging, and I'm sure you're right, there's going to be a lot more of this, and I do think it'll play out throughout next year as well, in its own way. But the thing is, not only does it allow us, when the stuff surfaces, and it can be very painful, but it also is healing, because when we shine light on what has been hidden, then it begins to disappear or dissipate, and that's when it gets healed, right? A lot of times, even in archaeology, I've been watching these shows, when you have something that's been underground or whatever, it's in water especially, it stays whole. It doesn't, nothing happens to it because the water protects it. It's not getting any air. So it's, you know, it's under and hidden, and then it comes to the surface, and that's when it actually starts to dissipate. But one of the things that's interesting about this is how it creates or awakens our spiritual crusader energy and makes us determined to change things, right? When we know, because we've known all this stuff is going on, but we didn't know it was happening to the people around us. We didn't tell people what would happen to us.
Yes,
so we all had
behind that white picket fence.
Exactly. The whole facade that, oh, everything's good. But now that all the shit has come to the surface, it's like, oh, what are we going to do about it? Are we just going to bob around and live with shit around us? Or are we going to demand something different?
Yes, exactly.
And it's interesting because I know we have a couple of 25 items of planets.
Yeah, we do.
At 25, which Mars is, and Lilith, which the two of them together, that's the spiritual crusader number. So I find it really interesting. Not only it's a spiritual crusader number, so it is about bringing wisdom to the world. You know, it's like being kind of like Joan of Arc energy. I know what I need to do. It's not a matter of being a martyr. It's a matter of like, I see wisdom, or I see something that needs to be put out there. Like there's no attachment. It's just a very resolute energy that is coming forward. And so that's very interesting. It also makes a 7, which we have a 7 day, right? This is the 7 day. And 7 is the number of wisdom. It's like bringing us back to our own wisdom. We're researching, we're looking, what is it that is true for me? What is my spiritual truth? What is it that I want to pay attention to? It is also a number that takes us into that cave, in a sense, because it makes us want to go inward. It makes us want to go into nature. So we're kind of breaking, like in a sense, we're putting a bubble around us just so we can hear our own voices, hear what it is that's important to us, so that we can put that energy into fighting, if you want to use the word fighting, for what it is we truly believe in. Right.
Awesome. So I'm looking at the rest of the chart, and, you know, I do want to say, you know, to those people listening or watching, that people most affected by this will be people with anything, any planets or angles around the middle of the fixed signs. And the fixed signs, of course, are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Those people kind of will be getting a lot of impact from the new moon itself. But then looking at the Grand Cross, anybody who has any planets or angles around the end of the cardinal signs will also be deeply affected. And that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. I mean, there's enough going on that I think we're all going to be affected, but they will be the people with most kind of internal or external shifts. And I know often that if you're not kind of open and to the possibilities when there's such change energy like this, and if you're not kind of doing the work and facing up to it and just kind of trying to move with the energies, then sometimes that's when it will appear that things just happen to you more than from you. If I always say, kind of do the energies or they will do you in a way. It's kind of like because we're invited and given opportunities all the time, which is why people like Jen and I do these things, to help give you a heads up so that you can get an idea of what possibilities are coming and be open to change and growth through the energies instead of resisting, which is when something really often flies in from the outside. So
yeah, that's a good point, because this is we are in change. We've been talking about it, and this period we're in is about change, and it's about, again, when we remember so much of this energy is around the 29, the 11, the ones. This is all about walking into the unknown, allowing the truth, the bigger truth, to kind of recalibrate the smaller truths, the things that you think like, oh, this is happening to me. Why? That sense of resentment, or that you're owed something, or it's supposed to be different. That's all the stuff that gets in our way, right? It's
or the expecting somebody else to do it for you too.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, even like, you plan your day and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and this is going to happen. It's going to work out perfectly. And then you hit a bump, something happens, and then you get pissed off, and which is totally fine, getting pissed off. But then the thing is that idea like it's someone else's fault.
Yes.
And we take that role of I'm a victim. That's really what we're doing when we say it's someone else's fault or someone needs to fix it for me.
I think questions would be really useful during this time.
Yes,
remaining open, asking questions. And say if you're trying to get some work done and your internet's going in and out like mine was this morning, you kind of just sit back and say, kind of what's kind of the message about this? Maybe I'm meant to be doing something else at this minute, and could this wait? Just to bring it down to little things. But bigger things, what possibility is this opening up for me? What opportunity is coming from this, whatever it is, as they come on.
Or another way we can do it, which I often find, like if I'm waiting in the line at the bank and this is annoying, like, oh, I've got things, we're all very important. We all have important things to do. What we have to wait is just opening my heart. Like, this is it. We're coming from a place of love, just remembering, love is our greatest weapon, if you want to use that word. It's the way we conquer the world is through love, and just relaxing, coming from that place of joy. How am I being of service? Well, we can be a better service in the line if we are smiling or just joyful and relaxed. Well, it's going to take the time it's going to take. There's nothing I can do about it. Let me enjoy this moment that I have. Do something for myself. Breathe or whatever. Laugh, smile, talk to the person next to you, right?
Yeah, or just think something over that you haven't had the time to think something over earlier in the day. A lot of us are so busy. We don't have time to give ourselves time to process stuff that's happening, and to reflect on it. And because all this is happening during an important retrograde, Venus spends the least time retrograde of any planet, and Venus really is us, because if you think of the Venus 5-pointed star, it's the head, the arms, and the 2 legs. It's kind of it is our higher self. So our higher self is retrograde through all this. So if we can take that opportunity of anything to just step back and reflect upon what it is about us that's going on, or something else that needs processing in our lives, Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the important thing about Venus, as she comes back as a morning, remember, she's coming back as the warrior. She comes back as a morning warrior. So this is about, again, the resoluteness, the idea. 22, which I mentioned, the month number, is this, it's called the practical mystic. It really is about this idea. It's the architect of peace and of the master architect of peace. Yes, absolutely. So there's this idea, we want to bring peace. You know, that again is that two, bringing people together, understanding people have different ideas. We create harmony through recognizing our differences and connecting through what's similar. And this idea of actually making things real or making things different is so important. Like, nothing's going to happen if we don't stand up and we don't change. And again, remembering the power of our voice. Sometimes the most powerful voice we have is our silence. When we stand in silence, looking at people with the energy of we know who we are, that's an implacable place to be, where people don't know what to do. You know, when we're violent and yelling and doing all this stuff, first of all, they can't hear us. Second of all, it gives them an excuse to say, oh, you need to get locked up, you're causing trouble. But when you're silent, you know, one of the most powerful things is to have a protest that's completely silent, because when you're silent, that silence speaks volumes more than the things we can say. It's when we look in each other's eyes. This is part of this energy. Like, I think this whole thing with the US, the election day, there's a lot of fraught energy, because we get so attached to what we want to happen that we fool ourselves into thinking, oh, if I just hope enough or do this or this, it's going to do it. But the universe has its own plan. So we have to go, whatever happens, we trust. This is, again, the energy of the 11. We trust that even though things happen that don't look like they're in our favor, that they will be, because we know what we want. We're not giving up because somebody said, oh, this happened and you didn't want it, right? We're not going, oh, okay, well, I'm going home then. I can't do anything about it. Right? We are bringing in our warrior energy, remembering, as Louise was saying, you know, in the chart, we have all those partnerships that are working together. I do think it's significant that Saturn on his own there is a 5 degrees, and 5 is the number of freedom. 5 is the energy of life, of change, where we go. So even Saturn is going, yes, let's change this. Let's get this thing moving. This is about movement. It isn't about giving up or having things our own way.
And it doesn't mean that we'll wake up after the election day and everything will be all okay. This is a beginning as well, because that's all the ones, right? The new number.
That's a new beginning, new present. Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to read the Chandra symbol, I think, now.
Okay, go ahead.
Unless you have anything more to say about the chart particularly. I think we've kind of covered all
I think we've covered it all.
Okay.
I was just going to say one thing about the election or whatever it is, whether our personal issues, is remembering we're going to have surprises and unexpected things. We're going to have wins. We're going to have losses, whatever side we're on. But this is the opportunity to come together, remembering that even in our disappointment, and in fact, in our disappointment, we can often find overlapping ways to comfort each other and take the strength to strategize. What is it that we're looking for? Where are we going with all of this?
Or maybe because of the effect of Uranus in both these next lunations, it'll be a big wake-up call to people that we cannot be this polarized. We just can't keep going this way. We have to. Well,
exactly, the choice again. Are we choosing to go, it's all their fault that life sucks, or I know what I want? So this is it, having an idea of what is our end goal. What is it we're trying to do? We want everyone to have the basic needs met and have decency, like you said, choice, consent, respect, then we have to do those things right now. We have to behave in that way, regardless of how disappointed we are. So,
yeah. So I find the Chandra symbol. So I'm going to read the Chandra symbol. Jen's going to read the Sabian. But with this being in Scorpio, well, clearly it's a Scorpio symbol, but all the words really kind of hit me. so it is Charon ferries the dead across the river Styx. The bittersweet combination of death's lessons and life's issues and dilemmas concerning limits or polarities, taking on the projection of the one who brings up, brings out, brings through what everybody would prefer to avoid, deeply impressed with the humanity karmas around death, and especially around every kind of restriction and heavily pressured passage, uncovering experientially the magnitude of fears and doubts, avoidances and negations, yet almost irresistibly tempted to constellate these things, to dramatize personally the shadow worlds. A transformative path can be accessed, and I think this is the important bit at the end. A transformative path can be accessed if you forgive everybody their obtuseness and align with redemptive currents in complete disregard of the old distortions and phobias, simply passing right through all of it to find a new freedom that is whole.
Wow, that is whole.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And, you know, it made me think about the ones, like the one represents ourselves, right? And that new beginning is within us. And when you put the two ones together, that's two, which is a wholeness, right? Two sides make a whole.
Yeah.
Of course, and or if you want to add the three, which is the triad, it really is very powerful to remember that we choose to show up, and that's what impacts the changes.
Exactly. And all those words. So, you know, I'll actually copy these words in the comment section of where this shows up on iTunes and things. Hopefully I can. But you know, it talked to as well about what we said about letting go of the old rules and things and creating this new way of being. And I love the way it's called the old distortions and phobias here, because Capricorn, there's a lot of fear in Capricorn as well. So there's so much to unpack in that one, I found. But it just speaks to the freedom that we can find on the other side, as you mentioned, with the fives, with Saturn in the 5-degree mark. So
that's right. Well, and actually the interesting thing about the 5 is this is, you know, being alive. It equates also to life, which is freedom. And that is being in the present moment, right? That's what it's all about, is being in the present moment. So that's what you just read is all about, being in the present. Like, it doesn't matter what happened in the past. Somebody pissed you off or whatever. It doesn't matter. You can just let go of that and go, I accept that I was pissed off, but now I'm choosing something different. I'm choosing compassion. I'm choosing to be kind, right?
Yeah.
To be generous, to be gentle.
To be loving.
Yeah, loving. Absolutely. Which doesn't mean you're a wuss, right?
No, it does not. It doesn't mean you turn into a doormat.
No. When you know who you are, this is the beauty, is when you know who you are, you don't have to hurt other people, right?
Exactly.
You can if you need to.
Well, you can speak up for yourself. You're not intentionally hurting others. You just say,
Yes.
Yeah, just being whole. Yeah.
All this other stuff that makes you like them.
Yeah. So,
okay. Shall I read the Sabian symbol for Scorpio 16? A girl's face breaking into a smile. This is a symbol of the need to share any true essence of selfhood, as here, brought to an immediate actuality, is everyday living. No ultimate values can be cloistered forever in the depths of self. And implicit in the symbolism is the gregarious nature of the human soul, as revealed in the naive friendliness it shows for other creatures. Here is a magic of personality by which any desired reality may be conjured into being. The key word is acquiescence. When positive, the degree is man's ingratiating gift for employing the simple things of life, for surmounting any momentary obstacles to his self-fulfillment. And when negative, self-betrayal through a lack of all discrimination.
Now, I mean, they say similar things in their own way, to my mind, and they just emphasize what we've been saying all along as well. You know, I think Dane Rudyard's kind of key words with this were warmth of feeling, and we talked about bringing love to it. And if you think about a face breaking into a smile, it's very kind of reaching out to new experiences. If you smile at people, often you get a smile back. I'm a bit of a smiler, so I walk around smiling all the time. And occasionally I get, what are you smiling at? But usually it brings other smiles. It brings people into you, I think. And it kind of speaks to me about what you were saying about the silence. You're kind of just emanating this thing instead of just going blah, 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 and getting in people's faces. It draws people in. So
yes, there's a vulnerability when you're, you know, you're among strangers and you burst into smile. There's a deep amount of joy in not only expressing that smile, but in receiving one. When suddenly somebody, you know, your face lights up. It's like, wow, suddenly I feel happy. Somebody's smiling at me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Joyful. We're having a joyful experience. Like, I think there's a lot of this energy that we think like, oh, we're supposed to suffer and be scared. And, oh, this is terrible. We tell ourselves, this is terrible. Oh, I'm suffering. No, I'm suffering more than you.
Yeah.
And why do we need to do that? Why can't we just be in joy? Like, this is amazing. Like, just being alive is the most amazing thing.
It is. Well, Jen, it's been a pleasure. Always love doing this with you. Where can people find you?
They can find me at jenduchenne.com and pretty much all over under my name, Jen Duchenne. I also have a Facebook group that is called the Light Club of the Woo-Woo Weirdos of the World, which you can join. And yes, so find me everywhere.
And can be found under my name anywhere, Louise Eddington, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, you know, my website's Louise Eddington. I also have a free group called Planetary Magic Cafe. And I do want to give a quick plug. Jen mentioned her cards. You can get them where on your website?
Yes, jenduchenne.com/illuminating journey cards.
And my book, Modern Astrology, which I should have with me, but I don't. It's in the other room. But you can find that. It's available for pre-order on Amazon in the US and the UK. And it's under my name. You can search the author, and it's called Modern Astrology. I'm really excited about that. It's aimed at you, the listener. It's not aimed to teach you to be an astrologer. But if you want to go down that path eventually, it's a start, but it's more at your personal growth. So check that out. And that's all from me, I think. Yeah.
All from me.
Okay. Bye for now.